In this video we're going to cover earthquakes. We're going to look at what earthquakes are, the seismic waves that are given off by earthquakes, and we're going to look at some of the secondary effects of earthquakes, including aftershocks, fire and tsunami, and then we're going to look at how a tsunami was caused after the Aceh earthquake of 2004. Earthquakes are caused by all the different movements of the tectonic plates, so at all the different boundaries. And although the tectonic plates move slowly, as they move slowly, they build up immense pressure. And once enough pressure is built up, this is all released in one big movement, and this movement is felt as an earthquake. So although it's a slow process, the pressure builds up, moves quickly. The focus is where the earthquake actually happens. So where the ground is moving is called the focus. And the epicenter is the place on the earth directly above the focus, and that's where the earthquake is felt the most. So although it can occur further down in the crust, the epicenter is where it actually is felt directly above the focus. These earthquakes produce waves, so tremblings in the earth, and they travel through the earth. Now, this is a little bit confusing, but seismic waves are studied by seismologists. So a scientist that studies seismic waves is called a seismologist, who uses a seismometer, and the seismometer is the piece of equipment. So it is a meter, so it measures seismic waves, seismometer, and it produces a seismogram. So the seismogram is the piece of paper that is produced by the seismometer, the instrument. When seismologists study the seismograms, they can see 4 different types of waves. 2 of these types of waves move through the body of the earth, and the other 2 move through just along the surface. So the ones that move through the body is the primary wave, and it's the fastest wave, and it's a compression wave. Secondary waves, second because they're slower, are transverse waves, so they move up and down. Then you've got the 2 surface waves, so love waves move across the surface in a side-to-side motion, while Rayleigh waves are rolling waves, and they're very destructive, but they don't move as far as, for example, the primary and secondary waves. So here's a diagram. This is a handy diagram to work out how these relate to each other. So we have the focus, and remember the focus is where the earthquake occurs inside the earth. The epicenter, which is the point directly above the focus on the earth. Then we have the Rayleigh and love waves, the surface waves, which travel along the surface of the earth. And the primary and secondary waves, the body waves, which travel through the body of the earth. Because all these waves travel both at different speeds and through different mediums, whether they travel through the body of the earth or across the surface of the earth, seismologists can study seismograms and work out how far away the earthquake happened. And they do this by looking at the time difference between the primary waves and the secondary waves getting to a particular spot. Now we're going to look at some of the secondary effects of an earthquake. Aftershocks occur after an earthquake when the ground moves and releases all that pressure. It's not necessarily settled yet. It might be in a precarious situation, sort of when talking the rock under the ground, and over time it sort of grinds back down and settles, and this can cause aftershocks. Fire can often be caused by an earthquake, and this is because in cities the burst gas mains, it's very easy to catch fire once the gas gets into the air, and this is even worse when say the water mains are burst, so the firefighters can't get to water to put out the fire. So fires can become rampant in a situation after a fire. after an earthquake. Earthquakes can also cause tsunamis, and this is generally if they occur on the ocean floor. They can cause a tsunami, which is a big wave that can, with a lot of power, and they can travel pretty much all the way around the world. Quite powerful. What we're going to do now is look at the Aceh earthquake in 2004 and how that caused a tsunami. So here we've got two plates, the Australian plate and the Indonesian plate. And this is a converging boundary where subduction is occurring. So the Australian plate is going down underneath the Indonesian plate. So as these two plates move together and the Australian plate moves down, what it does is it grabs onto the plate. Okay, so these aren't smooth surfaces, these are big chunks of rock. So it's basically caught on something. And over time, as it moves, it deforms the plate and causes stress at that point. And eventually, in 2004, the stress became too high, and all of a sudden, the plate snapped back to where it was before. And what this did, by having this earthquake, which epicenter in the water, is it basically slapped up a whole heap of water, and that water then dissipates as a big wave or a tsunami. Right, in this video about earthquakes, we've discussed why earthquakes occur. We've looked at the different types of waves that occur with earthquakes. We've looked at some of the secondary effects, including aftershocks, fire, and tsunami. And we've looked at Aceh as an example of an earthquake on the sea floor that caused a tsunami.